Mom, I said no. The answer is still no. I stared at my phone screen, watching those three dots appear and disappear as my mother typed, deleted, and retyped her response. Then her face changed on our video call. The sweet, pleading expression melted away like sugar in rain, replaced by something cold and calculating I'd seen too many times before. Before we embark on this incredible journey together, I have a small, heartfelt request. Please subscribe to my channel, give this video a like. It costs you nothing but means the world to me. And let me know in the comments which beautiful corner of the world you're watching from. Your support truly makes a difference. My name is Jennifer Walsh. I'm 42 years old, and I'm about to tell you how I learned that saying no to family isn't cruelty, it's survival. You see, that phone call happened last Tuesday, but the story really begins 6 months earlier when my mother sent me a text that would change everything. Honey, we need $3,000 for the mortgage. Emergency. Can you transfer it tonight? I was sitting in my Honda Civic in the parking lot of Richmond Elementary, waiting to pick up my daughter Emma from her after-school program. The Virginia autumn air was crisp, and I remember thinking how peaceful everything felt right before my phone buzzed. $3,000. Just like that. No explanation beyond emergency. I'd been here before, many times. My parents, Linda and Robert Kimmel, had perfected the art of financial crisis management, except they weren't managing anything. They were just passing their crises down to me like some twisted family heirloom. But this time felt different. Maybe it was the casual way she asked, like ordering a coffee. Maybe it was the word tonight, as if my bank account was their personal ATM with 24-hour access. I screenshot the message. I don't know why. Instinct, perhaps. Sometimes your gut knows what your heart refuses to acknowledge. The school pickup line started moving, and I put my phone away. But that text stayed with me, burning like a small ember in my chest. That night, I transferred the money. Because that's what good daughters do, right? Wrong. The pattern had been invisible until I started documenting it. 3 weeks after the mortgage emergency, another text arrived. Jennifer, sweetie, the car broke down. Need $2,200 for repairs. Love you. This time I hesitated. I was reviewing my own budget spreadsheet, a habit I'd developed after my divorce 2 years prior. Single motherhood teaches you to track every dollar, every expense, every small luxury you can no longer afford. What's wrong with the car? I texted back. Transmission. You know how these things are. But I didn't know. I'd asked my neighbor Dave, who owned an auto repair shop, about transmission costs just last month when my own car started making strange noises. Depending on the car, Jennifer, you're looking at anywhere from $300 to maybe $800 for a rebuild. Full replacement might hit $1,500, but that's for luxury vehicles. My parents drove a 2018 Toyota Camry. I called Mom directly. Which shop gave you the estimate? Oh, you know, that place on Broad Street. Mike's Auto something. Mike's Auto Repair on West Broad? Yes, that's the one. I knew Mike personally. We'd gone to high school together. After I transferred the $2,200, I stopped by his shop during my lunch break. Jennifer, good to see you. How's the Civic running? Actually, Mike, I wanted to ask about my parents. Linda and Robert Kimmel? They said you quoted them $2,200 for transmission work? Mike frowned, pulling out his appointment book. Kimmel? Kimmel? No, I don't have any Kimmels in here. Haven't worked on any Camrys this month either. You sure they said my shop? My stomach dropped. Maybe they got confused about the name. Could be. There's a Mike's Automotive over in Short Pump and another place called Mike & Sons down in Chester. I thanked him and left, but I knew what I'd discovered. The cold realization settled in my chest like a stone. That evening, I drove past my parents' house on Maple Avenue. Their Toyota sat in the driveway, purring like a contented cat. The lies were just beginning to unravel. The financial forensics started by accident. I was organizing my tax documents in February when I found my bank statements from the previous year. Highlighted transfers to my parents stared back at me like accusations. $3,000 in September, $1,200 in October, $800 in November for Emma's school clothes, even though I'd already bought Emma's entire wardrobe, $10,500 in December for Christmas emergencies, $7,500 in 4 months. My entire emergency fund, gone. I spread the statements across my kitchen table and started making a list. Each emergency had been urgent, unexpected, critical. Each had come with emotional leverage. We wouldn't ask if we weren't desperate, or, we'd do the same for you. But would they? I thought about my own emergencies that year. When Emma broke her arm in July, I'd called them, panicking about the $400 emergency room copay I couldn't cover until payday. Oh, honey, we wish we could help, but you know how tight things are for us. 2 months later, they'd needed $3,000 immediately. My laptop was still open from paying bills, so I started researching. Virginia property records are public. I searched my parents' address on the county assessor's website. Their mortgage payment was $1,847 per month. But in September, they'd told me they needed $3,000 for the mortgage. When I'd asked why it was so high, Mom had said, "You know how these things add up with fees and penalties." I called Fairfax County's real estate assessment office the next day during my lunch break. "Ma'am, I can't give you specific account information, but I can tell you that mortgage payments don't vary month to month unless there's an escrow adjustment, and those are typically small amounts. If someone needed an extra $1,153 beyond their normal payment, they'd be talking about significant back payments or legal fees. How would I find out if a property has any liens or legal judgments? You can search court records online or visit the courthouse. Circuit court records are public." That weekend, while Emma was at her father's house, I drove to the Fairfax County Courthouse. The clerk helped me navigate the computer system. No judgments against Robert or Linda Kimmel. No liens on their property. No record of mortgage default proceedings. I sat in my car in the courthouse parking lot, staring at the printouts. Clean legal record, current on all payments. The $3,000 mortgage emergency had been fabricated. But why were they lying, and what were they really doing with my money? The truth revealed itself through social media of all places. I wasn't a Facebook stalker, but when you're questioning everything you thought you knew about your parents, you start noticing things. Like the photos my mother posted from their weekend getaway to Virginia Beach in October, right after I'd sent them $2,200 for the fake transmission repair. The pictures showed them at the Hilton Virginia Beach oceanfront, dining at expensive restaurants, shopping at the town center. I recognized Mom's new Coach purse from her posts, the same purse she'd been carrying when they came to Emma's school play the week before, claiming they couldn't afford the $15 tickets, so I'd bought theirs too. I started screenshotting everything. October 15th. Lovely dinner at Catch 31. October 16th. Robert spoiling me at the outlets. October 17th. Nothing beats oceanfront views. A weekend at the Hilton, based on my quick Google search, would cost at least $400 per night, plus meals, shopping, and entertainment. Easily $1,000, almost exactly what they'd claimed to need for car repairs. I felt sick. Not just angry, but physically nauseated. The next emergency text arrived in early March. "Sweetie, we need $1,500 for home repairs. The furnace is acting up and winter isn't over yet." This time, I was ready. "What's wrong with the furnace?" I texted back. "Making terrible noises. Repairman says it needs a new heat exchanger thing." I called Dave's Heating and Cooling. Yes, my neighbor Dave also did HVAC work. The man was a one-person home improvement encyclopedia. Heat exchanger replacement? Jennifer, that's a major job. You're talking $1,500 minimum, but most people just replace the whole unit at that point. It's like rebuilding an engine when you could buy a newer car. If someone's furnace was making terrible noises, what else could it be? Could be anything. Blower motor, which is maybe $300. Could be loose ductwork, which is practically free to fix. Could just need a cleaning. I'd never quote a heat exchanger replacement without running a full diagnostic first, and that takes time. I drove past my parents' house that evening. No HVAC repair trucks, no equipment in the yard, no signs of any work being done. But I noticed something else. Their driveway was empty. Both cars were gone. I parked around the corner and walked back. Through their front window, I could see into their living room. Empty. No furniture covers, no tools, no indication of any repair work. But there was something else. Travel brochures scattered across their coffee table. I couldn't make out the details, but the bright, glossy covers were unmistakable. They weren't getting repairs done. They were planning another vacation. The confrontation I'd been avoiding came sooner than expected. My parents showed up at my house unannounced on a Thursday evening, just as Emma and I were finishing dinner. This wasn't unusual. They'd always been the type to drop by, but something felt different in their energy. "Jennifer, honey, we need to talk," Mom said, settling into my kitchen chair without being invited to sit. "What's up?" I kept my voice neutral, but my pupils quickened. "We've been thinking about Emma's future. You know, college funds, that sort of thing." Dad nodded solemnly. "Education costs these days are astronomical." "We have an opportunity," Mom continued, "to make a really good investment. A friend of ours is selling his rental property, and if we could just get $8,000 together, we could buy it and start earning rental income for Emma's future." $8,000. I looked at my daughter, who was pretending to focus on her homework, but clearly listening. She was 9 years old, but smart enough to sense tension. "That's a lot of money," I said carefully. "But think about it, sweetie. Rental property in this market? We could probably get $200 a month in rent. That's $14,400 a year. In just 8 months, the property would pay for itself." The math was seductive, I'll give them that, but I'd learned not to trust their numbers. "Where exactly is this property?" "Oh, it's in a transitional neighborhood, up and coming." "Which neighborhood?" Mom and Dad exchanged a quick glance. "You know, near the old shopping center, by Route 1. Route 1 in Fairfax County spans about 30 miles. "Which part of Route 1? Another glance between them. "We can show you this weekend," but I'd already made my decision. "I need to think about it. Honey, the opportunity won't last forever. He's got other buyers interested. Then maybe one of those other buyers should take it." The atmosphere in my kitchen shifted. Mom's expression hardened. "Jennifer, we're family. Family helps family." "Yes, we are family, and family doesn't lie to each other." The words hung in the air like smoke. Emma looked up from her homework, sensing the change. "What do you mean?" Dad asked, but his voice was too casual. "I mean the transmission that never needed repair, the mortgage emergency when you're current on all payments, the furnace that's working fine while you plan vacations." Mom's face went pale. "Jennifer, I don't know what you think you know. I know you've taken $7,500 from me in 6 months under false pretenses. I know you've been lying about emergencies while spending my money on trips and shopping." Dad stood up abruptly. "We've helped you plenty over the years, especially after your divorce." "How? How have you helped me?" We babysat Emma. Twice. You babysat her twice, both times because I was at work and desperate." "We're your parents," Mom said, her voice rising. "We raised you, fed you, put a roof over your head. And I'm grateful, but I'm not your retirement plan." They left without another word, but I knew this was far from over. The harassment started the next morning. Text after text flooded my phone, not from my parents directly, but from my Aunt Carol, my cousin Beth, even my great-aunt Margaret, who I hadn't spoken to in 3 years. "Jennifer, your mother is heartbroken. How could you accuse them of lying? Your parents have sacrificed so much for you. This is how you repay them? I'm disappointed in you. Family is everything." The messages kept coming throughout the day. I realized my parents had launched a coordinated campaign, painting themselves as victims of an ungrateful daughter. The manipulation was breathtaking in its scope. During my lunch break, I called my cousin Beth. We'd always been close, and her message had surprised me most. Beth, it's Jennifer. I got your text. Jen, what's going on? Aunt Linda called Mom crying, saying you accused them of stealing from you. They didn't steal. They lied about emergencies to get money from me. There's a difference. Are you sure? I mean, maybe there were misunderstandings. Beth, let me ask you something. In the last year, have they ever asked you for money? Silence. Then, well, yes, a few times. How much? Maybe $2,000 total, but they paid most of it back. When was the last time they asked? Actually, last week. They needed $500 for some medical bills. My stomach sank. Beth, they asked me for $8,000 yesterday for an investment property. $8,000? Jesus, Jennifer. And they told you it was medical bills? Yeah, Dad's blood pressure medication got expensive, and I could hear the realization dawning in her voice. Beth, Uncle Frank is retired military. His prescriptions are covered by TRICARE. A long pause. Oh my God. How many other family members have they asked for money recently? Over the next hour, Beth and I compared notes. They'd hit up almost every family member with means. Medical bills, car repairs, home emergencies. Each story tailored to the specific relative's likely sympathy triggers. Carol got the fixed-income seniors struggling to pay utilities story. Margaret heard about unexpected tax bills. My cousin Mike was told they needed money for Emma's school expenses. The total, as best we could calculate, was over $15,000 from family members in the past year. $15,000. My phone buzzed with another text from Mom. Jennifer, your father isn't feeling well. All this stress is affecting his heart. I hope you're proud of yourself. I screenshot the message and added it to my growing file, because that's what I'd started doing, documenting everything. The guilt trips and emotional manipulation were about to backfire spectacularly. The family meeting I called for the following Sunday wasn't what anyone expected. I'd invited Beth, Carol, Mike, and yes, my parents. I told everyone we needed to have an honest conversation about family finances and boundaries. They came expecting to gang up on me. Instead, they found spreadsheets. I'd prepared everything methodically, printed bank statements, screenshots of social media posts, a timeline of emergencies versus actual expenses. Most importantly, I'd coordinated with Beth, Carol, and Mike to compare the stories they'd been told. Mom, Dad, I said, I want to start by saying I love you, but love doesn't mean enabling financial dishonesty. I laid out the evidence calmly, professionally, the fake emergencies, the inconsistent stories told to different family members, the vacation photos posted immediately after crisis requests. We've collectively given you over $15,000 this year. That's more than many people's annual incomes, and it was all obtained through deception. Mom started to speak, but Carol, her own sister, held up a hand. Linda, just don't. We've all compared notes. The room was silent except for the ticking of my wall clock. Here's what's going to happen, I continued. I'm not asking for the money back, but I'm also not providing any more. No more emergencies, no more investments, no more crisis loans. If you have a genuine emergency, medical, legal, something verifiable, I'll help you find resources, financial counseling, community assistance programs, family services. Dad finally spoke. You're really going to cut us off? I'm going to stop enabling you. There's a difference. What if we really need help someday? Mom asked, and for the first time, her voice sounded small, vulnerable, real. Then you'll ask honestly. No stories, no manipulation, no lies. And I'll help if I can, but I'll verify everything. The meeting ended with awkward hugs and promises to work on things. Not perfect, but real. Thanks for staying with me through this journey. If this story resonated with you, please give it a like and share it with someone who might need to hear that setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's necessary. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to participate in someone else's dysfunction. 6 months later, my parents are still my parents. We have dinner once a month. They complain about money, but they don't ask me for it anymore. And when they occasionally start to slide into old patterns, I simply say, "Bank's closed, Mom." The hardest lesson I learned was that love doesn't require you to bankrupt yourself, financially or emotionally, for someone else's poor choices. Setting boundaries isn't cruelty. It's teaching people how to treat you with respect. Jennifer Walsh. Jennifer.